I feel right now I'm in this zone where I am still thirsty for evolving. I think that will never change. The thing you learn when you're, mature and you're experience things in life, now you want to surround yourself with people that evolve at the same frequency, if not higher. And that's where I merged into and found, the family that I am now, our family.
Welcome to the Growth Life Podcast, where we celebrate individuals and their stories about moments where they were courageous enough to embrace uncertainty, brave enough to love diversity, and smart enough to realize that they don't know everything. The Growth Life Podcast shares stories of growth in all areas: careers, mindset, relationships, wealth, and health.
Hello, everyone. This is Rod Hairston, co-host of the Growth Life Podcast. And I'm honored to have my special guest, friend, and partner, Hayat Hakim. How are you, Hayat?
Fine. How about yourself, Rod?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I selected you as my first guest, as our first guest, because again, you have such an extraordinary life, and we're probably going to have you on multiple times because you have multiple lives in one life. When I listen to this,
I know. Lives, just like the cat. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
That's why I'm an old cat lady.
Well, you're a fun cat lady. Put it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Now, do you really have cats?
Yes, I have 2 cats.
Oh boy, you are a cat lady.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it though. No more.
Okay.
No more cats. Yeah.
So before we jump into this, and I want to read your bio for all of our viewers. Mm-hmm. All right. Hayat is an Army combat veteran, founder of Hayat Yoga Shala. Is that right?
Shala. It means community center. Yes.
Shala, a holistic yogic wellness center located in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Now, did I say that right? Yogic?
Yes, yogic. That's yogic. Good.
Yeah. I've never heard that word before.
Yeah, it's kind of how you're described, like living a yogic life, living your yogic truth. It's kind of just, maybe
that's amazing. I like that word. I learn something every day.
Yeah.
All right. Home of one of the biggest military installations. That's Fayetteville, folks.
Yeah.
She is the creator of Yoga Re-Evolution Teaching, Training, and director of Holistic Experience Wellness at Truths and Visions. That's a really, really great company, isn't it?
Awesome company.
Yeah, I think it's great as well.
Mm-hmm.
She is a holistic catalyst of transformation and a vivid advocate of cultural diversity in all spectrums of business and personal growth. Diversity is really important, isn't it, Hayat?
Yes, absolutely. Just look at this call. As much diversity as it is just within this call.
It's everything. In fact, when people understand the science of diversity, and I think sometimes they miss that, we think of diversity as some sort of a liberal thing to do versus the science of it and how the race of human race, right, of mankind is dependent upon diversity. Really interesting.
Yeah.
All right. And courageous enough to embrace uncertainty, brave enough to love diversity. We just talked about that. And smart enough to realize you don't know everything. And this is why you are our first guest. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel very humbled, and I can't wait to just brainstorm, talk to you, and talk about you.
Well, so here's why you are my first guest, because you grew up in an environment that did not foster or support any type of growth, right? Mm-hmm. I think I grew up in that, but not as much as you, right? Where everything was laid out almost to who you were supposed to be married to, right? Mm-hmm. So I would love for you, and so when you find people that are extraordinary in that way, that are kind of born with this gift, or I believe you made a decision, I should say born, I would say courageous enough as a young woman to embrace this sort of growth life in an environment that worked against that. I would love for you to tell us, first of all, a little bit about your childhood, and then what are some of the decisions you made as a young, dynamic woman to break out of those things?
Okay. So I was born to a Syrian dad and an Austrian mom, and they met in Berlin, Germany. And then my dad was strict Syrian, so he was very raised into the Islamic belief, and it's a lot of the cultural influence as well, as they raise their kids, well, me including, and as they're trying to put the values of the tradition as well as the philosophy of the religion onto the child. So I moved from Berlin, where I was born, to Syria just for the first 6 years of my life, because my dad wanted us to learn how to understand the culture better, the language better, and just everything around. And then with 6, my mom kind of decided, hey, I would like for them to be at the European school system. So they moved us back to Germany, actually Bonn, Germany. So my dad, of course, was the head of the household. And he believed very much in the Muslim culture. So we used to go to the mosque on Friday nights, and we celebrated Ramadan, we celebrated Eid. But then in the same token, we celebrated my mom's side, which we had Easter, we had Christmas, and, we got to embrace both sides of that aspect. When thinking about the women in the Middle Eastern culture, they grow up to be strong and to be the base of the household, but to have those tasks, to be the base of the household. And when you step out the door, that is when the man is the head of the household and he leads everything. And it's kind of planned out on where your life goes. So you can say multiple of my cousins were promised to marry, a guy from childhood on, and then it just happened and it developed and they met and then they were married off, and their main mission in life was to create a strong household, to raise the kids, to embrace everything that the husband would bring home. It's not it's not necessarily a bad point of view from them, because that's the culture that I was raised into. But when it comes to the urge of evolving and the freedom to choose your own direction, that's where the limitation came in, And for me, so it was very direct. I knew when I had to be home, I knew when we had to go to the mosque. I knew we would travel to Syria for 6 weeks every year, and what I to expect of me as a girl, as a woman in the Muslim culture. And then, so that's kind of the direction. And then with 13, of course, everything changed. And I think I told you about that before, when my dad passed. And that's when it kind of just all was thrown into my hand. Choices, the evolution, which path I would take for myself. And I chose to, with 13, to basically kind of live my life to the fullest. So experience everything I could experience at that age and beyond. So my mom went right back to her path as a Christian once my dad passed. And then she kind of went MIA for a little bit. And so I was kind of on my own, which if I look back now, it's a blessing, as I've evolved from that, something I learned very much from you as well, to see that all as a blessing. And so I rolled up my sleeve and I started my first job with 13, and that was actually cleaning bathrooms. And then with 17, I applied for a German airline, which was Lufthansa. And I got actually hired with 17, but I couldn't start working till I was 18. And then I was flying all around the world, 18 years old. And I mean, I chose to live my life to the fullest, but without like really any direction. So just flying by my whole life experience. And then I fell in love with the US, and I stayed in the US, the only one in my family, first one in my family, and that's where I arrived here. So that's kind of a nutshell.
That's beautiful. Now, I think what we want to learn is we love your story. In fact, one day it's going to be a movie. Trust me. What we want to learn and what we want to model is knowing you and looking at your life and all of the things that you've accomplished and all of the people that you've helped in your life. What did you believe at 13? Tell us some of the specific beliefs that helped you to make these decisions to move towards the growth life. And I want to clear one thing up. Growth life, in my opinion, is not better or worse than any other life. It's just a choice. It's a choice that says, there's beautiful people in the world that have different belief systems, and I want to know those people because they're all part of me, and I don't know everything. And it takes some uncertainty to do that, right? And so when you think about what this show is based on, right? The courage to step into uncertainty, the bravery to love diversity, and and being smart enough or intelligent enough to know that you don't know everything. That's what you are. You should be the picture of that. And this many, many, many years later, look at what you've accomplished and where you came from. So what would you say, just a couple of belief systems, if you had to go back and think about that, what are some of the belief systems that you cultivated or you just decided upon or you modeled at 13 to make some of these huge moves?
So it was very uncertainty. I had no problem with uncertainty. So I would not know what would happen the next day, but I knew in my heart that I would make anything possible. So I didn't see the limitation at 13 that life sets up on you within, your growth. And it was just, anything was possible to me. And it was like with my dad's passing and me being hungry, basically, in living and surviving, I, through all the limitations that are set on the 13-year-old mind, I threw them away and said, I can live a good life, I don't know everything. Matter of fact, what do I know? But I can find out, I can step forward, I can take 150% of the risk, and I just deal with the aftermath later. And the aftermath was basically just be a lesson learned in this big book of lessons that I wanted to create. So there was no ceiling. There was no, stop growing right now, I was just, I guess now I would see it as I had the courage. I had the courage for 13. And I never looked at it that way, it's just like survival. But I had the courage of just taking a deep breath and saying, well, here I am, and I will move forward.
We're going to stay here because I really want the listeners and the viewers to get. So courage is an emotional state of mind, right? And we know that your courage is created by three forces. Your emotional state is, again, your focus, your self-talk, and your physical expression, your physiology, your body language. So what did you focus on as a 13-year-old? And that's so, you're leaving a culture that's almost opposite of the Western culture. You're leaving a situation where it's male dominated, and you're going into a whole new place. So what did you focus on? I mean, most people would focus on, I don't know anything. I'm violating a whole, maybe my faith. I'm violating how I grew up. I'm violating my family. What did you focus on?
Curiosity. A growth. Like, I wanted to know everything that's out there. I wanted to learn. I wanted to see. I was so curious about life and what else was out there. Just like from womanhood as well at this young age, So I had my family where my grandmother had her first child with 13 and then had one child each year, going up all the way till 19. And I just knew there had to be something different than that. What is it for a 13-year-old to make a difference and to just live a different life than everything that I've seen, and that was curiosity.
That's beautiful.
Curiosity and the drive to grow.
So if you think about it, and I wrote these down, you said under the self-talk, you said you ask yourself, and I'm going to kind of rephrase it a little bit, but part of your curiosity came from you asking yourself, is there more out there? Is there something out there that can support me? Am I living my gifts, right? And I'm kind of, but what other questions or what else did you say to yourself at that time?
How am I going to do that? Of course, how am I going to support myself? And it was kind of like the question, am I going to be okay with doing this on my own? How am I going to do this? Am I okay with doing this on my own? What is out there? What can I experience? And that's kind of it, I think. Yeah.
I love your questions, because if you think about your questions, how does not, and I think so many people miss this. As we get older, we start looking outside for answers instead of asking ourselves internally. And so think about that. I'm curious, which again, really focuses on possibility. Now I'm asking myself, how am I going to support myself? How am I going to do this? Well, you're asking your nervous system, your brain, your creativity to come up with answers. And it probably gave you several answers. Questions control focus, right? It supports focus.
Yeah.
And this third one, when I look at your bio and when I'm around you, you have a very powerful presence. You have beautiful physiology. You're a very beautiful person in how you carry yourself with grace, dignity, and flow. So at 13, what was your physical expression or body language like?
So, this is something I can take from maybe a couple of my family members, like my sister. I asked her before, and she said to me that, and I remember this, that I was very shy before my dad passed, and I was always in the background. And it was kind of when this happened and I was kind of thrown out there, it was kind of like me standing up and saying, ta-da, here I am, And so you could feel that my heart opened up. I could physically feel my shoulders rolling back and down. And I didn't know anything about yoga. This sounds like the beginning of a yoga class. My shoulders will roll back and down. And there was just this force, having my chin up high and just looking forward. And I rarely looked back. I was always in the forward motion from my posture, from my drive, just my heart open, and that changed overnight. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Leaning into the uncertainty. So your life is just one big congruency. And what I mean by that is what you teach now, from the Warriors with a Purpose, to your yoga practice, to the support you give us and Truths and Visions, and how you guide people. And it's all around leaning into that curiosity, leaning into uncertainty. You know how you deal with uncertainty, folks? You lean into it, right?
Yes.
You lean
Yes.
into it. And it's so beautiful because, again, you're nothing but pure potential, and that there's no uncertainty out there that can even deal with what you're actually capable of. So I want you to just kind of think about the 3 lessons here. Curiosity is the focus, and right?
Yeah.
What is a child? I just read something the other day, and it said that children are geniuses until right around 4 or 5, because their curiosity is the strongest at that time. And then we start, falling into conditioning and meanings that aren't ours, and we lose our curiosity. So let's talk a little bit more about that. How did you maintain that curiosity as you became this adult and you went through some of your experiences that were some really interesting experiences?
Yeah, so I kept, there was like a drive within me, a strive, like it wasn't just a walk. I ran into my life. So every time a hurdle would come up, I would sometimes not stop. I would just make a choice real quick on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Where do I go? And then I would take that hurdle and just run into one direction. And if I would hit a wall, I would avert directions and move into a different direction. So I would a little recklessly make decisions just with this with this leaning that sometimes were made really fast, and then just deal with the aftermath later. And that was just something constant. There was a constant, I guess that was the one thing constant, the change that was coming. And I knew a change would come, because nothing ever stays just the same. And I was striving for that. It was like my change was my strive, my motivation. And there was a plateau that you hit, and that's where it comes to smart enough to realizing that we don't know everything, and you search for more knowledge. And that's where you get the knowledge, becoming humble and more mature, and actually asking for help. So maybe stopping a little bit in that strive, and instead of just diversion, you stop and you take a breath and you say, okay, now I need to gain knowledge. Who do I gain this knowledge from? And that's where people like you come in play, and they somehow show up in a miracle way when you are slowing down your strive and you try to catch your breath. And as you inhale, it's like Rod was right there to help with the strive, so it slows down. I am the first one to admit that there's things in life that will slow you down, but it doesn't make you, like, there was never an urgency to be like, I will stop and there's no hope. When there was the saying that I talked to myself and said, it's time to stop. However, there must be something out there that can get me back on track. And that's when you look for more knowledge and you look for more help. And that's where people like you come in,
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so
it makes sense.
We talk about a lot that there's the comfort zone and there's the vision zone. Mm-hmm. When you create a vision, you have to step outside of your comfort zone in order to see what the vision is created for you. Because in the comfort zone is the old identity, the old vision, the old goals, fear. Outside of the comfort zone is where all possibility lives, but it's uncomfortable. And so what I hear you saying is that when you lean into that uncertainty and you step outside of the comfort zone, all of these possibilities, all of the answers are there. And it seems magical, but it's really, really simple. And in fact, you have to be our guest again. I'm going to get you to say yes before I can continue, because there's so much more to your story that kind of falls in line with everything that we're talking about, this whole growth life experience. And I want people to kind of see that there's a science to this. There's a system to it. It's not random. And we're playing in one of the games. We're playing in one of the pods, right? We're in the comfort pod or the vision pod. And your whole life has been around just creating a vision. And we're very, very fortunate that you stepped outside of your comfort zone, because now you're in a vision zone with us and we love you for it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So I feel right now I'm in this zone where I am still thirsty for evolving. I think that will never change. The thing you learn when you're, mature and you're experience things in life, now you want to surround yourself with people that evolve at the same frequency, if not higher. And that's where I merged into and found, the family that I am now, our family.
Yes, and you definitely are a fellow growthy. We'll call you that, right? You are a fellow growthy. Love your energy, and I love how you fell right into just the system, the way we communicate, the way we think, the way we are. And everybody felt that way. So you were the first guest, again, because you are evidence of this whole growth life experience and where you came from and where I came from and where Tanya and Lauren and all of the people that put this show together, we all came from different experiences, from different references, from different parents. But we all made a very similar decision to be curious. And when that curiosity starts tapping into those 100 billion brain cells that we have and this amazing creativity and capability, not counting our spirit, not counting, our intuition, not counting all of the things that make us up that we're just learning. So when you just look at the knowledge of who you are, or have any knowledge of who you are, it's very arrogant to think, using such little potential of who we are, to think we know anything. Right? And that's the most beautiful thing in life, is that we can be curious about learning everything. We probably won't get there in this lifetime, but man, what a beautiful, beautiful journey towards growth. The fulfillment that comes with that, the relationships that come with that, the joy that comes with that is absolutely beautiful. And it's reflected in our first guest, Hayat. Hayat, thank you so much for joining us. You are a delight, and you're going to be a delight in future shows. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your vulnerability, and let's grow together.
Yes, it was an honor being here. And like I always say, the light in me honors the bright shining light in you, Rod. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for catching this episode of the Growth Life Podcast. Join us at growth-u.com. That's growth-u.com.